Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bible Talks on WBCM Radio. This is our sixth deep dive, and it's pretty exciting. For anyone just joining us for the first time, each episode we explore a chapter or a theme from the Bible, and we try to make it relevant for you, our audience of amazing young adults.
Okay.
And today,
Yeah.
we're looking at
Genesis.
Genesis chapter 6.
Oh, yeah.
So get ready. This one's going to be
Are
intense.
you telling me Genesis 6 it's a wild ride? We've got mystery and drama and some really big questions about humanity, God's character, and ultimately hope.
Yeah, okay, so to set the scene, the first few verses talk about the sons of God taking wives from the daughters of humans. And this is one of those passages that's caused so much debate among scholars. Some people say that the sons of God are fallen angels.
Right.
Others believe they're descendants of Seth, the son of Adam and Eve. What are your thoughts on all this?
Right. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? If we go with the fallen angel interpretation, it paints a pretty dark picture. You know about the spiritual realm interfering with humanity, leading to more corruption and wickedness. It raises all kinds of questions about the nature of good and evil and how they interact in our world.
Right, and if it's the Sethite line, then it suggests that even those who come from a seemingly righteous lineage can become corrupted over time. And I think that speaks to the pervasiveness of sin and how easily humanity can stray from God's path.
Yeah, definitely.
But either way, something's clearly wrong. Because the text says that the Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil all the time.
Wow.
That's pretty heavy stuff.
It's a pretty bleak assessment of humanity's state. And I think it's interesting that this verse doesn't just focus on outward actions, but it actually highlights the inner thoughts and intentions of the heart. Every inclination was toward evil. So it's a reminder that sin isn't just about what we do, but it's about who we are at our core.
And how does God respond to all of this? He says, I regret that I have made them. I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race and the animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds in the air, for I am grieved that I have made them. I mean, talk about tough love. Seriously, what do we make of God expressing regret? It's something a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah, it's one of those verses that challenges how we understand God's nature. Some theologians say it's anthropomorphic language, using human terms to try to explain something beyond our understanding. God knew what would happen. But this language expresses his deep sorrow and grief over what's happening to his creation.
So it's not necessarily that God made a mistake or is changing his mind, but rather that he's deeply pained by humanity's choices.
Exactly. And that pain leads him to make a decision to judge and to cleanse the earth through a flood.
Okay, but before we get to the flood itself, we're introduced to this guy, Noah. Verse 8 says, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. So tell us about Noah. What makes him stand out in this corrupt world?
I mean, Noah's like this breath of fresh air in this otherwise really bleak situation. Genesis 6:9 tells us that he was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and that he walked faithfully with God. Notice it doesn't say that he was perfect, but his heart was aligned with God, and that's what sets him apart, and that's what makes him the key player in God's plan for redemption.
So God's about to unleash this massive flood, but he sees something in Noah, and he chooses Noah and his family to be saved.
Right. Noah becomes the vessel, literally for preserving humanity and animal life, and God gives him very specific instructions to build an ark. We're talking 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high.
You know, I'm pretty handy with a hammer and nails, but I think I would need some divine intervention for that one.
But God's serious about this rescue mission. He gives Noah the blueprint, 3 decks, gopher wood, a roof, and pitch inside and out.
Okay, but why all the specifics? I mean, wouldn't any old boat do?
The detailed instructions tell us that this isn't just any old DIY project. This is a divinely ordained vessel, carefully crafted to withstand the coming judgment. It's meant to be a sanctuary for God's chosen remnant. And that detail is sanctuary amidst all the chaos. It's a powerful image for us to think about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it makes me think God's about to wipe out all life on earth because of wickedness. Yet he takes all this time to save Noah and his family. It really speaks to his mercy and his desire to preserve what he's created. But before we get into what happens next, let's pause for a second. What's standing out to you so far? What are your thoughts on God's character, his judgment, his mercy?
Yeah, it really makes you think about that balance, doesn't it? God's justice and his mercy are so intertwined, even in this story of impending doom. But it's interesting, even in the middle of all this, there's this incredible act of grace happening. God is offering a way out, a chance for a new beginning.
And it's not just a chance for humanity, right?
Right.
God tells Noah to bring two of all living creatures, male and female, into the ark. It's like this huge rescue operation for all of creation.
Exactly. It's not just about saving humans, it's about preserving the diversity and beauty of all of God's creation, even in the face of judgment.
So picture this: Noah, his family, and a whole bunch of animals all crammed inside this giant ark. And then Genesis 7.11 tells us, in the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened. It's like the world is literally being flipped upside down.
The imagery is so powerful. It's not just a rainstorm, it's this cosmic upheaval. The springs of the great deep bursting forth suggests a complete disruption of the natural order. It's like a reminder that God is in control, even when things seem chaotic.
And the rain keeps coming for 40 days and 40 nights, the text says. Now, we know the number 40 has a lot of symbolic significance in the Bible. What do you think it represents here?
Well, 40 is often associated with periods of testing, purification, and transformation, like the Israelites wandering in the desert for 40 years, or Jesus fasting in the wilderness for 40 days. In this context, the 40 days of rain might symbolize the complete cleansing of the earth, like a spiritual reset button.
A divine detox, you might say.
Exactly, and the text emphasizes just how complete this cleansing is. Genesis 7.1i says, "They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered." Everything is submerged. It's a reminder of the consequences of sin and the power of God's judgment.
But even with all this destruction, we can't forget about the ark, right? That wooden vessel becomes a small island of hope in a world consumed by chaos. It's a symbol of God's faithfulness to his promises and his commitment to preserving life.
Absolutely. It's like a reminder that even in the darkest of times, God is still at work, still protecting those who trust in him. And it makes me wonder, how do we build our own arcs when we're going through the storms of life? Where do we find refuge and security when everything around us seems to be falling apart?
Those are really great questions for us to think about. But back to the story. The floodwaters recede, and eventually the ark comes to rest on the mountains of Ararat. I imagine Noah and his family must have been feeling a mix of relief, gratitude, and probably a little bit of fear as they stepped out into this new world.
I can only imagine. It would be like stepping onto a different planet. Everything they once knew is gone. It's a fresh start, a blank slate.
And what's the first thing Noah does? Genesis 8.20 tells us he builds an altar to the Lord and offers burnt offerings. It's a powerful act of worship and thanksgiving.
It shows that even after all this, Noah's faith is unwavering. He recognizes that his survival and the survival of his family and all the animals is because of God's grace and mercy.
And it's not just about thanking God, right? It's about reestablishing that covenant relationship with God.
Exactly. Noah's act of worship is like him saying, we're starting over, but we're not going to do it alone. We're going to do this together with God at the center.
And this time, God promises never to flood the earth again. As a sign of this covenant, he puts a rainbow in the clouds. It's a beautiful symbol of hope and reconciliation.
It's a reminder that even after judgment, there's always the chance for redemption, forgiveness, and new beginnings.
So we've gone from the depths of human wickedness to the devastation of the flood, and now we're seeing this glimmer of hope emerging. It's a reminder that God's story is always a story of redemption.
Huh?
What do you think? What stands out to you about this part of the story? What resonates with your own experiences of hardship and hope?
Yeah, it's amazing how, even with all its heaviness, the story ends up pointing us towards hope. We see humanity really messing up and facing consequences, but then there's a chance to rebuild and to do better.
Yeah, it's almost like a reflection of what we go through in life, right? We make mistakes, we face hardship, but there's always that potential for growth and renewal. And that rainbow, a symbol of God's promise. It's really powerful. It's a symbol of hope that speaks to people across different cultures and different times. Definitely. And talking about hope, Noah's story doesn't end with him getting off the ark. God blesses him and gives him a command. It's like a reboot for humanity. Genesis 9.1 says, "Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, 'Be fruitful and increase in number and fill the earth.'" So God's giving them a second chance.
Yeah, a new beginning.
Yeah.
But it's also a continuation. God is reaffirming what he originally wanted for humanity to be fruitful, to multiply, to take care of the earth. But this time there's a difference.
What do you mean?
Well, think about it. The world before the flood was filled with violence and corruption, people just ignoring God's ways. But after the flood, God makes a new covenant, a new set of rules for how people should live. He forbids murder, he emphasizes how sacred life is, and he promises never to destroy the world with a flood again.
So it's not just about starting fresh, but starting over with a sense of purpose and responsibility.
Right. And that's something we should think about today. How can we live in a way that respects God's creation, values life, and promotes peace and justice? How can we learn from past mistakes and make a better future?
Those are really important questions. And I think they're questions that each of us has to grapple with on our own and as a society.
Mm.
But Noah's story gives us a place to start. It reminds us that even when we make mistakes, God is always there offering forgiveness, a fresh start, and his grace.
And that's something we all need to remember, right? God's grace. No matter what we're going through, personal stuff, world problems, everyday struggles, it's comforting to know that God is with us. He's guiding us. And he's offering us a chance to start over.
That rainbow's a good reminder of that, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. It tells us that no matter how bad things get, God's love and his faithfulness will always be there.
So everyone, this has been Bible Talks on WBCM Radio, our deep dive into Genesis chapter 6. We hope this was insightful, thought-provoking, and maybe even challenged you a bit. And hey, don't forget to check out our other episodes and our Christian music reviews on our YouTube channel. You can find us at www.youtube.com at Radio WBCM. You can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all those other places you listen to your podcasts.
And like always, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts, questions, anything you learned in the comments. Let's keep talking about this.
And until next time, keep searching, keep exploring, and keep the faith.